James Bender is the founder and lead instructor of Waypoint Survival School. He'll go through more of it in detail, and I'll just brief introduction. With 30-year experience teaching self-reliance, he has a YouTube channel, and he's a public speaker doing things like this. James, thank you so much for coming. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, sir.
And enjoy.
All right, good morning. It's good to see all of you here, and thank you for coming. And the one thing that I will tell you about survival is that it is a long-term and lifetime goal. You are forever a student. I don't know everything, and I don't think I ever will. And so I enjoy learning, and I enjoy meeting people. There are all kinds of new skills, new abilities, and I'm continually adding to my repertoire of what I teach and what I personally learn. So here's some rules to guide you when you go out. First of all, let someone know where you're going and how long you expect to be gone. Have adequate provisions for the time expected. And I would say if you're going out for a multi-day trip, make sure and have an extra day of supplies. And probably one of the best things you can do is a freeze-dried meal. They're super lightweight, so you're not carrying a lot of extra poundage, and it only takes water. You don't even have to use hot water. You can just rehydrate it with cold water if that's what you have. But sometimes people ask me, if you could only take one thing, if you're in a survival situation, you could take one food, what would it be? It'd be a jar of peanut butter. All right, a lot of calories, a lot of protein, and sugars and all that, so really good for you. Also, when you're out, stay on established, well-maintained trails and don't get lost. Don't travel at night in unfamiliar territory unless it's an absolute necessity. And then, you've got to be really careful because you lose the ability to see objects and items, and there's a lot of people have stumbled over small cliffs or even large cliffs because they really couldn't see the edge, and you got to be really careful. Be aware of the critters that are in your area. Bears, wolves, coyotes, cougars, wildcats, scorpions, snakes, alligators, etc., depending on where you are. Now, do keep in mind that as human beings, we are apex predators, all right? We are pretty well toward the top of the food chain, but occasionally you'll get in swampy areas, you'll get in heavily forested areas and places where there are grizzlies and brown bears and various other things, and you are not the top of the food chain, and you have to be really careful. You don't want to keep your food really close to you. You don't want to cook food close. You want to store it at least 100 feet to 100 yards out away from where you're actually camping, and you want to prepare your food away from where you're sleeping at night because that food smell, remember these critters can smell a lot better than we can, and so I know it's nice to lay there in your shelter and munch on beef jerky, but you may wake up and something's munching on you. So it's good to keep your food in a safe distance, and we'll cover that here in a little bit. But most wild animals are scared of you. And especially if you've got a fire, because of forest fires and because of things, they have a natural inherent fear of fire. And so a good fire at night is very important. All right, learn how to use the compass and the sun for basic directions and navigation. Always practice fire safety. Put your fire out when you're done. Make sure you clear an area around where you're fired. Don't be one of those careless individuals that destroys the natural environment. And be alert also when you are in areas that are prone to forest fires. You may not want to have a fire, but if it's an absolute emergency, then absolutely go ahead and just make sure that where you're starting your fire is in a safe place. And a lot of times you can find sandy areas or around rocky areas on a creek bank or something. Just make sure that it's not raining and get flooded out. You got to be very careful in this particular country with flash floods. And always be aware of the 4 W's. And the 4 W's are this: water, wind, wood, and widowmakers. All right, now water, of course, you want to be close enough to water, but you want to be careful, as I said, that you don't get washed out or destroyed, just destroy your camp even. Even if you make it to escape to safety, you may find that your gear has been washed away, so that's not a good deal. The wind. Wind is a bad deal. It can make you really cold. Now, if you're in an environment where there's a lot of mosquitoes, you may want to use the wind. You may be up on a hilltop even, so that the wind keeps the critters from bothering you. On the other hand, if it's really cold, you want to be careful and not be in a place where you're exposed to the wind. Wood, it's always a good idea to camp close to firewood. Remember, you've got to carry this You got to process it, and if you can get close to a large down tree where you can just break off branches, obviously that's always better. Widowmakers, you don't have a lot of them in this area. Back in the eastern woodlands where I teach, it's a great big dead branch that can fall on you and impale you to the ground in the middle of the night in a high wind. I've camped out, as a matter of fact, last winter, we were down in the Red River Gorge down in Kentucky, and there was a huge wind came up, and we could hear trees falling around us. And we had selected a campsite, of course it was safe. Make sure that you wear proper clothing for the first time you're out and for any environment that you're in. It's your first layer of shelter and your first line of defense and survival. Make sure you dress to survive, don't just dress to arrive. Many people go out into they drive from here to here to here, come from a warm house to a warm car to a warm home with their neighbor, or they go to church, or they're going to a store or whatever, and they don't really experience the cold. But you're driving 10, 15, 20 miles between spaces. If something would happen, you would find yourself needing to walk some distance, and it's cold especially. You could be in a really bad shape and get severely frostbitten before you get there. So make sure that you dress to survive, don't just dress to arrive. And make or build your own survival kit. It needs to be filled with items that you personally have used, okay, and that you are familiar with. So many people go out and buy commercial kits. They stick it in their trunk or put it in their, in their bag, and they're like, I've got a survival kit. Never used any of it. No idea how if it's durable or if it even functions right. So build your own survival kit. It needs to fit your needs and the needs of your family or your group. Most commercially made kits are full of low quality items that would perform poorly if you were in a real survival situation. Now, I will tell you that I would rather have jet flying away. I'd rather have a $2 knife made in China than no knife at all. But if my life is going to depend on it, I want the best knife possible, the best knife that I can afford, okay? And I also make custom knives, so I have a little leg up on that. But the thing of it is, you've got to make sure that what you have will hold up, because it may save your life and the life of your loved ones. So put the best you can afford into your survival kit, and just make sure that you're paying attention, that you've actually used those gears. A good place to start for a survival kit is with the 10 C's of Survival, made popular by Dave Canterbury. And the 10 C's in order of importance from 1 through 10, 1 being the hardest to reproduce in the wilderness, with 10 being the easiest to reproduce in the wilderness. Number 1 is a cutting tool. Number 2 is a combustion device, something to start a fire. Number 3 is cover. You know, the Native Americans would have loved to have had a sheet of plastic. Okay? A garbage bag or a shower curtain or anything like that that you can actually make a waterproof shelter with. A container. There were entire Native societies built up around making containers, baskets and pottery and things like that. And then cordage. You know, you can make it, but it's a whole lot easier just to have a hank of 50 or 100 feet of paracord or bank line or something with you. Some kind of cotton material, cotton bandana for instance. You can use it for all sorts of things as a pre-filter for your water, bind up a wound, and you can even make a sling out of it. There's a lot of things you can do with a cotton bandana or a piece of cotton. You can make charred cloth, for instance, for your next fire. Cargo tape, duct tape, and actually duct tape goes back to about 1898 when they put adhesive on duck cotton, and that's where it gets its original name, duct tape. But cargo tape, because you're trying to stick with the C's. Number 8 is a compass. Compass. Now, I know that there's a lot of primitive ways to tell direction, but a compass, even if you don't have a map, will keep you from wandering in circles. And most people have a dominant side, either right or left, and they will actually travel in large circles. That's not just a myth, that actually does happen. Number 9, a cloth sail needle. A heavy-duty needle with a large eye that you can use to repair your gear. Don't wait until something starts tearing and I get by later, and then it becomes, a small rip becomes, a large hole. The old saying, a stitch in time saves 9, is very durable. Is a very good, a very durable saying, because it holds up, and you'll find out that if you repair things, they'll last you longer. Number 10 is a candling device. And years ago, before we talked about lumens, we talked about candle power. And so anything that will project light. So this could be your campfire. It could actually be a candle. If you're in the North Country and you make a snow cave, a single candle can warm up a snow cave enough to get it above freezing and save your life. One of the things that we talk about and what I teach in my classes at all 4 phases is the 7 survival priorities. And I have a video on this on my YouTube channel. So the 7 survival priorities plus 1. First of all is fire. I'm going to try to go through these quickly, and of course you can watch this video later on as it'll be on my YouTube channel. The ability to make fire and the knowledge of how to use it is of the utmost importance. Fire is a multi-tool in itself. It cooks your food, it purifies your water, hardens your wooden tools, gives warmth, provides light, signals rescuers, scares away predators, keeps the boogeyman away at night, and it's nature's TV. It's just fun to sit and stare into the fire at night. Fire is probably the most important first skill to learn and own. In my opinion, you should always have at least 3 means of starting a fire with you or on you, and you should always have some dry tinder with you in a Ziploc bag. I like to have the first 3 stages of fire with me whenever I go out, and these would be something like cotton balls, and then make sure they're cotton, make sure they're not the synthetic kind. They need to be 100% cotton. Soaked with Vaseline. You can use dryer lint, cedar bark, tulip poplar bark, dry grasses, etc. Anything you can process and make real finely shredded material out that will catch a spark or a flame. A few small sticks of fat wood. I love fat wood. This is pine pitch wood. And you can buy a large box of it at Walmart for like $10. And it's just excellent fire starter. It's a natural product. It's waterproof. And so it's a great renewable resource. And you can make small curls and shavings with that for your fire starting. And then a small Ziploc bag of dried twigs. Just keep it with you. Just take when it's not raining and everything's nice and dry, just go out and pick up a bunch of real small twigs that'll fit, like a small bundle that'll fit inside of my hand like that, and put it in a Ziploc bag. And that way you've always got the first 3 stages. So using the cotton balls, a couple of slivers of fat wood, and my little bundle of twigs, I now have enough heat that I can gather materials from the area even if it's been raining, and I've got enough heat to dry that out and build my fire. And I actually do have a video where I show you how to start a fire in the rain. It's actually raining and I go out and start a fire using this method. Water. A person can only live about 3 days without water, sometimes less in the desert if it's hot. Learn how to find and identify clean water sources. If no clean water is available, learn the steps how to make water safe to drink. Boiling is usually the best way to purify water, although there are some excellent water filters that work pretty well in most environments in the U.S. as long as you aren't around heavy mining areas. Do remember that heavy metals, most of your water filters will not remove that. There are some, but they're kind of expensive, so just always keep that in mind. There are also water purification tablets, but some of them can take up to 4 hours to work. And if you're really thirsty and you really need some water, the last thing I want to do is wait 4 hours to get some to drink. So here's something for your notes. Water can be made safe to drink by holding it at 149 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 minutes. This will fully pasteurize the water, but I don't usually bring a way to determine the temperature. Do you bring a thermometer with you when you go out backpacking or in the wilderness? I don't. However, just bringing it to a boil and letting it cool down enough to drink will accomplish this without using a thermometer or a watch. So you don't have to boil it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Just bring it to a boil, let it cool back down until you can drink it, and you'll get your 6 minutes of pasteurization at 149 degrees. You should always, therefore, have a stainless steel bottle or titanium with a removable cap for boiling in a fire. And you can use a cotton cloth, as I said before, either a bandana or a t-shirt for filtering debris, known as turbidity, out of your water before boiling. Number 3 is shelter. It's easier to take shelter than it is to make shelter. A person can only generally survive for about 3 hours without shelter in certain environments. Again, always remember your first line of defense against the elements is the clothes you are wearing. Dress to survive, don't just dress to arrive. I want to stress that because that's very, very important. Make sure and use proper layering with an outer waterproof shell. Make sure and stay away from cotton, especially as a base layer in the winter, as it holds moisture a long time. So unfortunately, a lot of the Fruit of the Loom and various other, your long johns are made out of cotton. Once cotton gets wet, it takes a long time to dry out, especially when it's cold. So polypropylene or any of your synthetics. Also wool, get a merino wool base layer, fantastic stuff. And so I would highly recommend that instead of cotton. Actually, in the survival community, cotton is sometimes referred to as death cloth, because once it gets against your skin and if it freezes, it'll freeze right next to your skin, and of course then you know, hypothermic. So, however, you do want to make sure and wear cotton in the summertime or in the desert, as the evaporative cooling, because it does take a long time to dry out, the evaporative cooling will help keep you from overheating. So pay attention to your clothing. And after that, having just a simple $10 6x8 tarp is better and easier to put up than the simplest of debris huts. Even if you decide to build a debris shelter, the tarp can be used to make the roof area 100% waterproof, which is the most difficult thing to achieve in natural shelters. Even one of the contractor garbage bags, 42 to 55 gallon garbage bag or drum liners, makes a pretty good shelter in a pinch. You can cut it open, slit the sides, and use that over the area where you're sleeping. And then if you have something like a wool blanket to roll up in, if you keep it in your car, you're way ahead of most folks in a survival situation. The reason we like wool is wool will retain your body heat, 80% of your body heat, even when it's soaking wet. And wool has to be at least 50% wet before it feels wet. And so I know it's itchy, I know it's scratchy, but the hollow fibers will help keep you warm. Food. We all need to eat food eventually. Even though the average person, believe it or not, can survive for 30 days without food, you're going to be pretty weak and miserable by the first week or so. You can mitigate that to some extent and practice by fasting now, which has many physiological and even some spiritual benefits. But you should always bring some food with you. Even some bouillon cubes or hard candy will fit in all but the smallest of survival kits and will add flavor and calories to your situation. When it comes to foraging wild edibles, get to know at least 10 common and widespread, easily identifiable plants. I know there's going to be a foraging seminar here after a little bit, and I would highly recommend you going to that. It's better to know 10 plants well, however, than just sort of know 100. You need to know those, that I said, that are widespread and have a lot of uses. And so there's different ones like that, and depending on your area. You can build upon your knowledge in this area as you go more into the outdoors. Get a book with color pictures, not line drawings. All right? There are several good choices out there. Some suggested books are The Complete Guide to Edible Wild Plants, Department of the Army, 2009 edition, and The Forager's Harvest and Nature's Garden by Samuel Thayer. However, there is no substitute for going afield with an expert and learning from them. That is the best way.